The emergency lights flashed red across the massive diplomatic station floating in deep space. Inside the Grand Council chamber, representatives from 47 different alien species gathered in urgent discussion. The air was thick with tension, and the strange mixture of sounds that came from so many different beings trying to communicate at once. Translators worked overtime, converting clicks, whistles, roars, and songs into understandable language. Captain Daniel Cross stood near the back wall of the chamber, his arms crossed over his chest as he listened to the heated debate. His dark hair was starting to show hints of gray at the temples, and the lines around his eyes spoke of years spent traveling between the stars. Beside him, his 11-year-old daughter Lily sat on a bench, swinging her legs back and forth. Her auburn hair fell in waves past her shoulders, and her bright green eyes watched everything with intense curiosity. The Vrexian ambassador rose to speak. He looked like a massive praying mantis standing nearly 8 feet tall with gleaming purple exoskeleton armor. His name was Thezik, and his voice came out harsh and angry through the translation device. "We cannot delay any longer. The creature known as Kelthos has destroyed 6 colonies in the past month. Thousands are dead. We must strike now before it reaches the inner systems." A murmur of agreement rippled through parts of the crowd. Several species nodded their various heads or made gestures of support, but others remained silent, their expressions troubled. Solara, the ambassador from the Naga people, uncoiled her long serpentine body and rose to considerable height. Her scales shimmered like oil on water, reflecting rainbow colors in the chamber's lights. "And what good will striking do, Thezik? 3 fleets have already engaged the Void Serpent. None survived. Our weapons pass through it like smoke, yet its fire burns hotter than any star. Kelthos has existed for thousands of years. It has seen civilizations rise and fall. What makes you think we can succeed where countless others have failed? Then what do you propose?" Thezik shot back. "That we simply wait for it to destroy us all? I propose we find another way. There is no other way with a force of nature." Daniel cleared his throat and stepped forward. The argument died down as the aliens turned to look at the human. Humans were relatively new to the galactic community, having only made first contact 30 years ago. They were still considered young and inexperienced by most species. "What if we tried talking to it?" Daniel said simply. The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens laughed. Others made sounds of disbelief. Thezik's mandibles clicked together rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "Talk to it." "Captain Cross, with all respect to your species, the Void Serpent does not talk. It does not negotiate. It simply destroys everything in its path. Everything living communicates in some way," Daniel replied calmly. "We just need to figure out how." "This is foolishness," a delegate from the Korthan Empire growled. The bear-like alien slammed a massive paw on his console. "We should be preparing weapons, not wasting time on impossible diplomacy." Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The lights shifted from red to blue, the color reserved for only the most extreme emergencies. A young officer burst through the chamber doors, her face pale with fear. "It's here!" she gasped. "The Void Serpent. It just appeared on our scanners. It's heading straight for the station." Panic exploded through the chamber. Delegates scrambled over each other, trying to reach the exits. Some flew toward the ceiling vents. Others slithered between legs and claws. Voices rose in fear, creating a cacophony of terror. Guards activated defensive shields and powered up weapons that everyone knew would be useless. Daniel grabbed Lily's hand. "Come on, honey. We need to get to the ship." But Lily wasn't moving. She stood perfectly still, staring up at the massive viewport that dominated one wall of the chamber. Her small hand pulled free from her father's grip as she walked slowly toward the window. "Lily," Daniel called out, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to tear open. A rift of pure darkness appeared, and from it emerged something that defied description. Kelthos was enormous, stretching at least 5 kilometers from its massive head to the tip of its tail. Its body looked like living shadow mixed with streams of molten fire. Where starlight touched its scales, the light seemed to die, absorbed into the darkness. Yet veins of brilliant orange and red flame ran beneath its skin, pulsing like a heartbeat. The creature's wings spread wide, each one large enough to eclipse a small moon. They weren't made of membrane or feathers, but of pure energy that rippled and flowed like liquid night. As the wings moved, stars behind them flickered and dimmed, but it was the eyes that truly captured attention. Two massive orbs of swirling fire and darkness, like collapsed stars that still somehow burned. They radiated power and age and something else that was harder to define. Those eyes fixed on the station, and even the bravest warriors felt their courage melt away. Lily pressed her hands against the viewport, her face close to the transparent material. Around her, the chamber continued its descent into chaos, but she seemed unaware of it all. She stared at the approaching dragon with an expression of wonder rather than fear. "Dad," she whispered, though her voice somehow carried through the noise. "It's beautiful." Daniel reached his daughter's side, his heart pounding. "Lily, we really need to go now." "But Dad, look at it." "Really look. I am looking. I see a creature that's destroyed 6 colonies." "No," Lily said softly. She pointed at those massive, burning eyes. "Look closer." "It's scared." Daniel started to argue, to tell his daughter that nothing that powerful could be scared, but something made him stop. He looked where Lily was pointing, really looked, trying to see what his daughter saw. And slowly, impossibly, he began to understand. Beneath the rage, beneath the terrible power, beneath the cosmic fire and living shadow, there was something else in those ancient eyes. Pain, loneliness, a sorrow so deep and old that it had calcified into anger. The eyes of a being that had lost everything and everyone it had ever cared about, alone in an endless universe that feared and hated it. The dragon stopped moving. It hovered in space just beyond the station, perfectly still. Its massive head tilted slightly, and those burning eyes focused not on the weapons being powered up, not on the fleeing delegates, but on the small human child with her hands pressed against the glass. They stared at each other across the void. Lily turned to her father.
"Can I go talk to it?"
"What? No. Absolutely not." "Please, Dad, it needs help. It's all alone and hurting, and everyone keeps shooting at it. Someone needs to try being nice." "Lily, that thing is the most dangerous creature in the known galaxy." "No," Lily said with the absolute certainty that only children possess. "It's the loneliest creature in the galaxy. There's a difference." Daniel looked at his daughter, at the trust and compassion in her young eyes, and then back at the cosmic horror floating outside their window. Every instinct he had screamed that this was insane. But Daniel had learned over the years that sometimes the most important moments required the most faith. Solara slithered up beside them. The Naga ambassador had not fled with the others. She stared at Lily with something like awe. "The child sees what we cannot," she said quietly. "Perhaps that is why her species will inherit the stars." Daniel took a deep breath. He thought about all the wars in history that started because no one was willing to take the first step toward peace. He thought about how fear made people do terrible things. And he thought about his daughter, who somehow saw friendship where everyone else saw monsters. "Okay," he said finally, "but I'm coming with you." The hangar bay had been transformed into a makeshift meeting point in less than 20 minutes. Engineers worked frantically to reinforce the atmospheric shield, while technicians adjusted sensors to monitor the cosmic entity floating just outside. Most of the delegates had fled to their ships, but a handful remained, watching from behind reinforced barriers. They stayed at a safe distance, or at least what they hoped was a safe distance, though everyone knew that if Kael'thas decided to attack, nowhere on the station would be safe. Captain Daniel Cross walked slowly toward the energy barrier with Lily at his side. His heart hammered in his chest, but he kept his breathing steady. He had faced dangerous situations before in his years as a starship captain, but nothing compared to this. Every step felt like walking toward his own execution. Yet he kept moving because his daughter walked beside him with complete confidence. Lily wore her favorite jacket, the blue one with patches from different planets sewn onto the sleeves. She had insisted on bringing a small bag with her, which now hung from her shoulder. When Daniel asked what was inside, she just smiled and said it was important. Kael'thas had moved closer since the initial sighting. The dragon's massive head now filled the entire view beyond the energy barrier. Up close, the creature was even more terrifying and magnificent. Its scales were like pieces of the night sky made solid, shifting and flowing across its body as if the creature was made of liquid darkness. Veins of fire ran beneath the surface, pulsing with each breath the dragon took. When it exhaled, clouds of cosmic dust and dying stars escaped its nostrils, dissipating into the void. The dragon's teeth were each the size of a transport ship, glowing with internal heat. Its claws could have torn the station in half. Everything about Kael'thas spoke of power, ancient and terrible. This was a being that could end civilizations with a thought that had existed since the universe was young. Behind the barriers, Thezek spoke urgently to Solara. "This is madness. We should be evacuating, not inviting the creature closer." "The human child has seen something we have not," Solara replied. Her voice was quiet but firm.
I have lived 300 years and studied the wisdom of a dozen species.
"In all that time, I have learned that children often see truth more clearly than adults. Their eyes are not clouded by fear and prejudice, or they see truth because they don't understand danger," Thezek countered. "Perhaps, but look at the creature. It has not attacked. It has not moved since the child appeared at the window. That alone is unprecedented." Daniel and Lily reached the edge of the energy barrier. The shield hummed with power, the only thing separating them from the void of space and the cosmic dragon beyond. Daniel put his hand on Lily's shoulder. "Honey, if anything goes wrong, if that thing makes any threatening move, you run as fast as you can back to the ship. Do you understand?" Lily looked up at her father and smiled. "Nothing bad is going to happen, Dad, I promise. You can't promise that." "Yes, I can. Because Kelthos doesn't want to hurt anyone. It just wants someone to listen." Before Daniel could say anything else, Lily stepped forward until she was right at the edge of the barrier. She was so small compared to the dragon's head. The creature's eye alone was larger than her entire body. That eye burned with cosmic fire, swirling with colors that had no names, showing depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Lily raised her small hand and placed it flat against the energy barrier. On the other side, separated by nothing but a thin field of force, the most dangerous creature in the galaxy watched her. "Hi there," Lily said in her clear, young voice. "My name is Lily Cross. You're Kelthos, right? I've heard a lot about you." The dragon made no sound, but something changed in its expression. The rage that had been etched into every line of its ancient face softened ever so slightly. The fire in its eyes dimmed from blazing fury to something more like curiosity. "Everyone's really scared of you," Lily continued. "But I don't think you're scary. I think you're sad, and probably really lonely. Being the last one of anything must be really hard." A low rumble emanated from the dragon, so deep that it vibrated through the station's hull. Alarms started beeping as sensors registered energy fluctuations. But Kelthos made no aggressive move. The creature simply stared at the small human child, its massive head tilting slightly to one side. "I bet you had a family once," Lily said softly. "Friends. People you cared about, but they're all gone now, aren't they? And you've been flying around space for thousands of years all by yourself. And everywhere you go, people shoot at you because they're afraid. That would make anyone angry." Tears began forming at the corners of those massive, burning eyes. Not water, but something that looked like liquid starlight. A single tear broke free and drifted through space, evaporating into cosmic dust. The sight was so unexpected, so impossibly moving, that even Thezek stopped his protests and simply stared. "I lost someone too," Lily said. "My mom died 3 years ago. It was really hard. Some days it still is. Dad and I have each other. But I know what it feels like to miss someone so much it hurts. I can't imagine missing everyone all at once." Daniel's eyes stung with tears. He had not known his daughter was going to talk about her mother. They rarely discussed it anymore, though the pain was always there, lurking beneath the surface of their daily lives. Kelthos lowered its head slowly, carefully until its snout was directly in front of Lily, separated only by the energy barrier. The creature's breathing slowed. The fire in its veins pulsed more gently. For the first time in recorded history, the void serpent looked peaceful. "You know what I think?" Lily asked. "I think you're not a monster at all. I think you're just really, really tired. Tired of being alone. Tired of fighting. Tired of having nobody understand you." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small object. It was a stuffed animal, a worn teddy bear that she had owned since she was a baby. "This is Mr. Buttons. He's been my friend for as long as I can remember." Everyone needs a friend, even the strongest and scariest dragons in the galaxy. Lily pressed Mr. Buttons against the barrier, as if offering it to the dragon. "Would you like a friend, Kelthos? Because I'd really like to be your friend, if you want." The dragon's response shook the entire station. But it was not an attack. It was not a roar of rage. It was a sound that nobody had heard from Kelthos in 3,000 years. It was something between a purr and a song, a vocalization of pure emotion that bypassed language entirely. Everyone who heard it felt the same thing, a wave of loneliness so profound it brought tears to their eyes, followed by a spark of hope so bright it was almost painful. The energy barrier flickered, Engineers shouted in alarm, thinking the dragon was attacking. But it was not the dragon's doing. The barrier was overloading from the sheer emotional energy being broadcast. Systems were not designed to handle this kind of cosmic connection. The shield died completely for just a moment. Nothing separated Lily from the vacuum of space and the dragon beyond. But the air did not rush out. The cold did not touch her. Kael'thas had wrapped her in a protective field of pure will, a bubble of warmth and safety. The dragon lowered its head further, bringing its massive snout within touching distance of the small human child. Its eyes, burning with the light of ancient stars, looked directly into Lily's young face. And in that gaze there was no threat, only recognition, only gratitude, only the desperate hope of a being that had been alone for so long it had forgotten what connection felt like. Lily smiled, tears running down her cheeks. She reached out, her small hand moving through the space where the barrier had been, and touched the dragon's scales. They were warm, they pulsed with life and power, but they were also gentle, as if Kael'thas was carefully controlling every atom of its being to ensure it did not hurt this precious, compassionate child. And then Lily did something that made every being watching freeze in absolute shock. She wrapped her arms around the dragon's snout and hugged it with all the strength in her small body. She hugged the deadliest creature in the galaxy like it was an old friend she had not seen in years. Kael'thas closed its eyes. The cosmic fire that raged around its body calmed to a gentle glow. For the first time in millennia, the void serpent was at peace. The moment Lily's arms wrapped around Kael'thas, something impossible happened throughout the entire station. Every being present, from the smallest insect-like delegate to the massive bear-like Korthans, felt a surge of emotion and memory wash over them. It was not telepathy in the traditional sense. It was something deeper, more primal. It was understanding without words, knowledge without teaching, empathy without explanation. They felt Kael'thas' story. The dragon had been born in an age when the universe was young and filled with light. It came from a species called the Lumina Draconis, beings of pure cosmic energy who existed between the physical and spiritual realms. They were not conquerors or destroyers. They were shepherds and teachers, guardians of young civilizations who needed guidance as they reached toward the stars. The Lumina Draconis traveled from world to world, helping species learn to use their technologies wisely, teaching them to resolve conflicts without war, showing them how to build societies based on compassion rather than fear. They were patient and kind, understanding that growth took time and that mistakes were part of learning. Kael'thas remembered the joy of watching primitive species discover fire for the first time, the pride in seeing them build their first spacecraft, the happiness of knowing they were ready to stand on their own. The dragon had witnessed the birth of 100 civilizations, had celebrated with them, mourned with them, grown with them, but the universe changed. As more species emerged and spread across the stars, fear began to replace wonder. The new civilization saw the Lumina Draconis not as teachers but as threats. These cosmic dragons were too powerful, too ancient, too different. Whispers spread that they were dangerous, that they sought to control rather than guide, that they needed to be eliminated before they became a problem. The wars began slowly. First one species attacked a Lumina Draconis claiming self-defense, then another, then another. The cosmic dragons tried to explain, tried to retreat, tried to find peace, but fear was a powerful motivator, and soon the entire galaxy united against them. The dragons who had spent eons helping others were hunted across space like animals. Kael'thas fought back, not because it wanted to, but because survival demanded it. The dragon watched as its brothers and sisters fell one by one, their lights extinguished forever. It felt each death like a piece of itself being torn away. When the last of its kind died in Kael'thas' arms, begging forgiveness for leaving it alone, something inside the dragon broke. For 3,000 years, Kael'thas wandered the void. It tried to sleep, to let itself fade away, but the universe would not let it rest. Every few centuries, it would wake and try again to find others like itself. The dragon would call out in frequencies only its species could hear, hoping beyond hope that somewhere, somehow, another Lumina Draconis had survived. But there was only silence. Always silence. The recent attacks on the colonies had not been acts of malice or aggression. Kael'thas had detected unusual energy readings that resembled the signatures of its kind. Desperate and hopeful, the dragon had rushed to investigate. But the colonies, seeing a massive cosmic entity approaching, had opened fire immediately. Their weapons, while useless against Kael'thas, triggered ancient instincts. The dragon had retaliated without thinking, consumed by rage and pain and the crushing weight of eternal loneliness. 6 colonies destroyed, thousands dead, all because nobody had tried to communicate, to understand, to see past their fear. The memories and emotions faded slowly, leaving everyone in the hangar bay shaken and changed. Many were crying openly, regardless of whether their species had tear ducts. They understood now. They saw what they had been too afraid to see before. Kael'thas was not a monster. It was a survivor carrying unimaginable grief. Lily pulled back from the hug and looked up at those massive, burning eyes. Her own eyes were red from crying, but she smiled through her tears. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry nobody helped when you needed it." Kael'thas made that rumbling purr again, softer this time, almost gentle. The dragon's massive head nuzzled against Lily's side, carefully, as if afraid it might hurt her with even the slightest touch. Daniel Cross stepped forward, his own face wet with tears. He had seen his daughter's courage and been moved by the dragon's story. He placed his hand on Kael'thas' scales, feeling the warmth and power beneath his palm. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said quietly. "We're here now. We're listening." Behind them, Solara moved forward. The Naga ambassador had lived for 3 centuries and considered herself wise in the ways of the universe. But she realized now that she had been blind. They all had been. She reached out and touched the dragon, adding her voice to the growing chorus. "Forgive us. We should have tried to understand before we attacked. We let fear make us cruel." Thezek remained behind the barrier, his body rigid with conflict. Everything he had believed about Kael'thas was being challenged. But he had felt the memories too. He had seen the truth. Slowly, hesitantly, the Vrexian ambassador stepped through the barrier and approached the dragon. "I advocated for your destruction," Thezek said, his voice tight with shame. "I called you a monster. I was wrong." Other delegates began emerging from their hiding places. One by one they approached Kael'thas, not with weapons or shields, but with open hearts and tentative hope. A delegation of small, rabbit-like beings from the outer rim clustered together, reaching up to touch the dragon's scales. A floating jellyfish creature pulsed with colors that indicated remorse and acceptance. Even the Korthan warrior, who had been ready to fight just moments before, bowed his massive head in respect. The dragon watched them all with ancient, knowing eyes. It had lived long enough to understand that fear made people do terrible things, that ignorance could be as dangerous as malice. These beings had wanted to destroy it not because they were evil, but because they were scared. And fear, Kael'thas knew, could be overcome with patience and compassion. Lily tugged on her father's sleeve. "Dad, Kael'thas wants to help. It wants to teach people again like it used to do a long time ago. It wants to do good things instead of bad things." "How do you know that?" Daniel asked. Lily shrugged. "I just know. We're friends now. Friends understand each other." Kael'thas lifted its great head and for the first time spoke in a way that all the gathered species could understand. It was not words exactly, but pure meaning that bypassed language entirely. Every being heard it in their own way, but the message was the same. "I have been lost in darkness for so long that I forgot what light looked like. You have shown me that there is still hope in this universe, still kindness and compassion. I will destroy no more. I will build instead. I will teach instead. I will be what I was meant to be, what my people were before fear destroyed them. I will be a guardian again." The chamber fell silent as everyone absorbed the dragon's declaration. Then Solara spoke, her voice strong and clear. "Then let us help you. Let us learn from you. The galaxy needs wisdom, not more weapons. It needs teachers, not destroyers. Kael'thas, we offer you a place among us, not as a threat to be contained, but as a respected elder whose knowledge can guide us toward a better future." Murmurs of agreement spread through the assembled delegates. Even those who had been most afraid, most ready to attack, found themselves nodding. They had seen the truth. They understood now. Thezek stepped forward. "I propose we make Kael'thas an official ambassador to the Galactic Council. Let the dragon's wisdom be available to all species, so that we might avoid the mistakes that led to the extinction of the Lumina Draconis." "Agreed," said the Korthan warrior. "Agreed," echoed voices from a dozen different species. Lily beamed with happiness. She had come here hoping to make a friend, and instead had helped heal a wound that had been bleeding for 3,000 years. She hugged Kael'thas again, and the dragon wrapped one massive claw gently around her, holding her with impossible care. Daniel watched his daughter and felt his heart swell with pride. She had taught them all a lesson today. That strength was not about weapons or power. True strength was the courage to love what you did not understand, to reach out when everyone else pulled back, to see the person beneath the monster. The galaxy had been on the brink of another war. Now it stood at the threshold of a new age, an age of understanding, an age of compassion, an age where the deadliest creature in existence had become its greatest teacher, and it had all started with a little girl who was brave enough to hug a dragon. 6 weeks had passed since the meeting at the diplomatic station. Word of what happened spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every news channel, every communication network, every corner of civilized space buzzed with the story of the human child who befriended the Void Serpent. Some called it a miracle. Others called it the beginning of a new era. A few skeptics called it propaganda, though their voices grew quieter each day as evidence of the dragon's transformation became undeniable. Kael'thas had not destroyed another colony. Instead, the dragon traveled to each of the 6 worlds it had damaged and worked to rebuild them. Using powers that few understood, Kael'thas reshaped broken landscapes, purified contaminated atmospheres, and helped restore what had been lost. The dragon could not bring back the dead, and that grief weighed heavily on its ancient heart. But it could help the living, and that was what it focused on doing. The survivors of those attacks, who had every right to hate Kael'thas, instead found themselves moved by the dragon's genuine remorse. They watched as this cosmic being, powerful enough to crack planets, carefully used that same power to help a child find their lost pet. They saw it gently lift collapsed buildings to free trapped families. They witnessed it weep tears of starlight over memorial sites for those who had died. Fear slowly transformed into something else. Not quite trust, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. The Galactic Council formally appointed Kael'thas as an ambassador and special advisor. The dragon attended sessions regularly, though it had learned to shrink its form down to something more manageable for indoor spaces. Instead of being 5 kilometers long, Kael'thas compressed itself to about 50 meters, roughly the size of a large transport ship. It was still impressive and intimidating, but at least it could fit through doorways. Lily Cross had become the dragon's almost constant companion. School had become complicated since the incident. Teachers did not quite know what to do with a student who disappeared for days at a time to travel the galaxy with an ancient cosmic entity. Eventually, the council arranged for Lily to receive special education directly from Kael'thas, learning things that no school could teach. History from someone who had lived through it. Physics from a being made of cosmic forces. Philosophy from a mind that had pondered existence for millennia. Daniel worried sometimes that his daughter was growing up too fast, seeing too much, but he could not deny how happy she was. Lily glowed with joy whenever she was with Kael'thas. The dragon, in turn, seemed to grow younger in spirit each day. The rage that had defined it for centuries melted away, replaced by something gentler and more hopeful. Today they were visiting a planet called Veron 4, a world where 2 species were on the brink of war over territorial disputes. The conflict had been escalating for months. Diplomats from a dozen neutral parties had tried to mediate, but both sides remained entrenched in their positions. Violence seemed inevitable. The council had asked Kael'thas to intervene. The dragon descended from orbit with Lily riding on its back. She had gotten used to space travel with Kael'thas. The dragon surrounded her with a protective field that kept her warm and safe, letting her experience the wonder of flying between stars without any danger. It was the most incredible feeling in the universe. They landed in a neutral zone between the 2 warring factions. Representatives from both sides had agreed to meet, though they refused to be in the same room together. Kael'thas would have to speak to each group separately, and somehow find common ground. The Veronians were reptilian beings who had lived on this world for thousands of years. They believed the disputed territory belonged to them by right of ancient tradition. The Keltak were insectoid colonists who had arrived 500 years ago and built thriving cities in regions the Veronians considered sacred. Neither side was entirely wrong, which made the conflict even more difficult to resolve. Kelthos met first with the Veronian elders in a vast cavern that served as their council chamber. The elders were old and wise, but also stubborn and angry. They had watched their sacred sites be desecrated by the Keltak and wanted justice. The dragon listened patiently as the elders listed their grievances. They spoke of traditions violated, of burial grounds disturbed, of holy places turned into industrial zones. Their anger was justified, their pain real. When they finished, Kelthos spoke in that way it had, meaning without words, understanding without language. I know what it is to watch your sacred places be destroyed. I know what it is to see everything you hold holy turned to ash. I know the rage that comes from such loss. The elders leaned forward, their ancient eyes focusing on the dragon with new interest. But I also know what happens when rage becomes your only guide. Kelthos continued. 3,000 years ago, my people were killed by those who feared us. I spent millennia consumed by anger, lashing out at anyone who came near. That anger cost thousands of innocent lives and brought me no peace. It only made my loneliness deeper and my pain sharper. Lily sat quietly beside the dragon, her small presence a reminder of what compassion looked like. The elders noticed her, this human child who seemed so at ease next to a cosmic entity that could destroy their entire world. The Keltak did not come to your world to hurt you, Kelthos said gently. They came seeking a home. They built their cities not knowing the significance of those sites to your people. This was ignorance, not malice. And while ignorance can cause great harm, it can also be corrected through teaching. One of the elders, an ancient female with scarred scales, spoke up. They refuse to leave. They refuse to acknowledge our claims. How can we teach those who will not learn? Have you tried? Lily asked softly. All eyes turned to her. She stood up, her small voice clear in the vast chamber. I mean, have you really tried to explain why those places are important? Or did you just tell them to leave and get angry when they said no? The elders looked at each other uncomfortably. The truth was, the initial communications between the species had been demands and threats, not explanations and discussions. Fear and pride had prevented real dialogue from ever beginning. The child speaks wisdom beyond her years, Kelthos said. Let me speak with the Keltak. Then let me bring you together, not as enemies preparing for war, but as neighbors learning to share a world. The elders were reluctant, but they agreed. Kelthos had a way of making even the most stubborn beings willing to try. The dragon met with the Keltak leadership in their central hive, a towering structure of crystal and metal that hummed with the activity of millions of workers. The Keltak queen was a magnificent creature, twice the size of her workers, with wings that shimmered like stained glass. She was also terrified. Her people had escaped a dying world and found refuge here, only to discover that their presence was unwanted. They had built homes and raised children and created a new society. The thought of abandoning it all was unbearable. We have nowhere else to go, the queen said, her voice carrying harmonics of desperation. Our homeworld is gone. If we leave Veron 4, we will die in space before we find another suitable planet. Kelthos listened with the same patience it had shown the Veronians. Then the dragon asked a simple question. Did you know the sites where you built your cities were sacred to the native population? The queen's wings drooped. No. We detected ruins, but we thought them abandoned. We meant no disrespect. By the time we learned the truth, we had already established ourselves. To move now would require resources we do not have. Then let me propose something, Kelthos said. What if you did not have to move entirely? What if instead you learned the significance of these sites and incorporated that knowledge into your cities? What if you turned your settlements into monuments that honored the past while building the future? The queen tilted her head. How would that work? Lily spoke up. You could ask the Veronians to teach you about their history. You could put up markers in museums. You could design your buildings to preserve the old ruins instead of covering them. You could make it so both species share the sites instead of one pushing out the other. Kelthos nodded. And the Veronians could benefit from your advanced technology. You could help them restore other sacred sites that have fallen into disrepair. You could work together to preserve this world's history while creating a new shared future. The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she said, the Veronians will never agree. They want us gone. They want acknowledgement and respect, Kelthos corrected. They want to know their culture matters. Show them that it does. Show them you are willing to learn and change. Fear makes people rigid, but compassion makes them flexible. Over the next several days, Kalthos worked tirelessly to bring both groups together. It was slow and difficult. There were arguments and setbacks. Old resentments flared up. But gradually, painfully, progress was made. The turning point came when a young Keltak architect presented plans for redesigning one of the cities to incorporate and preserve the Veronian ruins at its center, turning the settlement into a living museum. The Veronian elders were moved by the effort and respect shown in the design. In return, they agreed to share their historical knowledge and help the Keltak understand the significance of what they were preserving. They even offered to teach Keltak children about Veronian culture, ensuring that future generations would grow up appreciating. 3 months had passed since the day Lily Cross hugged a dragon and changed the galaxy forever. The diplomatic station that had been the site of that historic meeting had been renamed Unity Station, and it now served as the headquarters for a new initiative called the Council of Understanding. The goal was simple but profound: to help species communicate better, resolve conflicts peacefully, and build bridges instead of walls. Kalthos served as the head of this council, though the dragon insisted it was merely a guide rather than a leader. The real work, Kalthos said, belonged to the people themselves. The dragon could teach and advise, but each species had to choose compassion over fear. That choice could not be forced. Lily had become something of a galactic celebrity, though she found the attention embarrassing. Everywhere they traveled, people wanted to meet the human child who had befriended the Void Serpent. They asked for her autograph, wanted pictures with her, and treated her like some kind of hero. Lily did not feel like a hero. She had just done what seemed natural at the time. She had seen someone hurting and wanted to help. Still, she was happy with how things had turned out. Kalthos was her best friend, and together they were making a real difference in the universe. That felt good, even if all the publicity was kind of annoying. Today they were back at Unity Station for a special ceremony. The Galactic Council was officially recognizing Kalthos's contributions to peace and presenting the dragon with the highest honor they could bestow. Delegates from every member species had gathered for the event, along with representatives from dozens of non-member civilizations who had heard about the dragon and wanted to see it for themselves. Daniel Cross stood in the observation deck of Unity Station, watching preparations for the ceremony below. His daughter was down there somewhere, probably with Kalthos, making sure the dragon was ready for the big event. Daniel smiled at the thought. His 11-year-old daughter was helping a 3,000-year-old cosmic entity prepare for a ceremony. Their life had become very strange, but he would not change it for anything. Solara slithered up beside him. The Naga ambassador had become a close friend to the Cross family over the past months.
"You must be very proud," she said. "I am," Daniel replied.
Though sometimes I worry that she's growing up too fast. She's seen so much, experienced so much. I wonder if she's missing out on a normal childhood. What is normal? Solara asked with a gentle smile. Your daughter is learning things that no school could teach. She is seeing the universe with eyes unclouded by prejudice. She is making friends across the galaxy and helping to build a better future. That seems like a remarkable childhood to me. I suppose you're right. I just want her to be happy. Look at her. Solara pointed to where Lily was visible in the main hall, laughing at something Kalthos had communicated to her. The girl's face glowed with pure joy. Does she seem unhappy to you? Daniel had to admit she did not. Lily was thriving. She was confident, compassionate, and wise beyond her years. The universe had not diminished her childhood wonder. If anything, it had enhanced it. The ceremony began an hour later. The main hall of Unity Station was packed with delegates. Kalthos had shrunk to its indoor size, about 50 meters long, and coiled in the center of the chamber. The dragon's scales shimmered with subdued light, and its eyes, once burning with rage, now glowed with warmth and peace. Thezek, who now served as the council chairman, approached the dragon. The Vrexian had changed considerably over the past months. His initial fear and aggression had transformed into respect and friendship. He often said that meeting Kalthos had taught him more about leadership than his entire career in politics. Kalthos, Thezek began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. 3 months ago, we stood ready to destroy you. We called you a monster. We saw you as a threat to everything we held dear. We were wrong. Blinded by fear, we could not see the truth that a human child saw immediately. You are not a destroyer. You are a teacher. You are a healer. You are a beacon of hope in a galaxy that desperately needs guidance. The delegates murmured their agreement. Many species that had once feared Kelthos now looked to the dragon for wisdom. Even the most warlike civilizations had started seeking peaceful solutions to conflicts, inspired by the dragon's example. In recognition of your service to galactic peace, Thesic continued, the Council unanimously voted to present you with the Stellar Cross, the highest honor we can bestow. This award has been given only 7 times in our history, to individuals who changed the course of civilization itself. You are the 8th recipient and the first non-humanoid to receive this distinction. Kelthos bowed its head humbly. I accept this honor not for myself, but for all those who have the courage to choose understanding over fear. The true heroes are not those with power, but those with compassion, those who reach out when others pull back, those who see friends where others see enemies. The dragon's massive head turned toward where Lily sat in the front row. I especially dedicate this honor to Lily Cross, a child who taught an ancient dragon that it is never too late to change, never too late to heal, never too late to hope. She saved my life not with weapons, but with a hug. She showed me that the universe still has light in it, still has kindness and love. For that, I will be forever grateful. The chamber erupted in applause. Beings from dozens of species made sounds of celebration in their own unique ways. Lily's face turned bright red with embarrassment, but she smiled and waved at the crowd. After the ceremony, there was a reception where delegates mingled and shared food from their various worlds. Kelthos, in a smaller form still, moved through the crowd carefully, speaking with anyone who wanted to talk. The dragon had become remarkably good at socializing, something it had not done in thousands of years. Lily stood on a balcony overlooking the main hall, taking a break from all the attention. Her father found her there, standing alone and looking out at the stars beyond the station. You okay, honey? Daniel asked. Yeah, Lily said. Just thinking. About what? About Mom. I wish she could see this. I think she'd be really proud. Daniel put his arm around his daughter and pulled her close. She would be incredibly proud. I know I am. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars. Then Lily asked, Dad, do you think other dragons might still be out there? Like maybe some of Kelthos's people survived and are hiding somewhere? I don't know. Why? Because if they are, they must be really lonely. Just like Kelthos was. And now that everyone knows dragons can be good, maybe they'd feel safe enough to come home. Daniel considered this. It was a beautiful thought. The idea that other ancient beings might be watching from the shadows, too afraid to reveal themselves. Maybe you're right. Maybe seeing what happened with Kelthos will give them hope. As if responding to their conversation, Kelthos appeared beside them on the balcony. The dragon had compressed itself to about the size of a large dog, small enough to fit comfortably in the space. It was both strange and endearing to see such a powerful being in miniature form. You spoke of my people, Kelthos said, having overheard their conversation. I'm sorry, Lily said quickly. I didn't mean to be rude. You were not rude. You were hopeful, and hope is a precious thing. The dragon gazed out at the stars with those ancient knowing eyes. I have searched for millennia and found no trace of other Lumina Draconis. But the universe is vast beyond comprehension. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps others survived and are hiding, waiting for a sign that the galaxy has changed. Then let's give them a sign, Lily said firmly. Let's show them that things are different now, that people can learn and change, that they don't have to be afraid anymore. Kelthos made that rumbling purr that indicated happiness. You are wise beyond your years, little one, very well. We shall send a message into the cosmos, a beacon of hope for any who might be listening, and perhaps someday it will be answered. Over the next weeks, Kelthos worked with scientists from across the galaxy to create a special transmission. It was a message encoded in the ancient frequencies of the Lumina Draconis, frequencies that only those beings could detect. The message was simple: come home. You are safe now. You are welcome. You are loved. The transmission was broadcast from Unity Station using the most powerful communications array ever constructed. It was boosted by dozens of relay stations across the galaxy, ensuring the signal would reach even the most distant corners of space. Nobody knew if anyone would hear it. Nobody knew if any other dragons even existed, but that was not the point. The point was to try, to reach out. to offer hope. 3 weeks after the transmission, something incredible happened. A small ship appeared on the edge of the system, broadcasting on the same ancient frequency. The crew of Unity Station watched in awe as the ship approached and a being emerged that looked like liquid crystal and starlight. It was not quite like Kael'thas, smaller and differently shaped, but unmistakably one of the Lumina Draconis. The being had been hiding for 2,000 years, afraid and alone, convinced it was the last of its kind. It had heard the transmission and for the first time in centuries, felt brave enough to reveal itself. Kael'thas.